I've been waiting for this. Kristen, I see that you just joined. You want to do a sound check, please?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me now?
Now, was that Cynthia?
Yes,
Yeah, we got you, Cynthia. Thank you for joining.
thank you.
Kristen Stranger, can you do a sound check, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you now. Thank you, Kristen. Veronica Rodriguez or Bill Watson, are you on the phone yet? I'm thinking those two, but we have four. Veronica Rodriguez, Region 5, and Bill Watson. Okay. Bill, we see that you just joined. You want to do a sound check, please?
3, 2, 1. This is Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, welcome to our March JPA Council JPA meeting. We have confirmation of quorum. Our agenda has one main vote item on the action items and then 4 consent items that Julia and team will walk you through. We've got 7 informationals and we should be able to get everybody back to their Friday after that. Appreciate you being here in the afternoon. It's one of our piggybacks out to CWGA, so long day for everybody, but we appreciate you being here. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and go into public comment on items listed not on the agenda. Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move right into the agenda, and that takes us right to our first action item.
Yeah, okay. So in January, during the member representative meeting, we asked the group to select various objectives that they felt were a priority. There were 7 that were presented, and during that public meeting, these 4 objectives rose to the top. That's enhancing self-service access, streamlining administrative processes, enhancing user experience and support, and the final one being enhanced reporting analytics and client communications capabilities for greater flexibility and insight. So these are being presented to vote on so that we can start working on a technology roadmap that falls within these strategic themes. And so I think that's all that we want to present, and just put that up for a vote.
So these are the 4 that were the top,
Yes.
top vote getters. So this doesn't change, this is a question, even though it's being created as a formal, but this doesn't change our process by which we govern the project in terms of point of contacts, RMs. This is is that how this fits in?
Yes.
Do we have any questions or comments from our board members or our state partners we'd like to share at this point?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael. Julia, can you confirm the time frame for these objectives? Are they 1-year objectives or longer?
Oh, yeah, so I think the goal of this is probably in the future years, we would present this right after a new board, so a little over like every year, just confirm and see if there's any, adopt.
So annual. So this is for this year, and then we'll go ahead and, this year carrying forward, and then we'll revisit them on the next turnaround.
And Julie, can you, address the 3 items that were not prioritized and sort of from those areas, what you consider basic everyday work we are gonna do versus what might have been over and above and been prioritized?
Yeah, sure. So, the one, this is the eye chart for me, and my glasses aren't helping, but things like security and privacy, collaboration, those things are what we consider foundational items. So, those get integrated into operations at CalSAWS as, no matter what. Security and privacy are integrated into everything we do, just from a compliance perspective. So I'm not gonna speak for the directors, but I think they consider those what we said, we consider, Michael coined this term table stakes, for us, and with the other ones being, higher priority.
So those kind of things that you mentioned, the infrastructure oriented things like security that were
Yeah.
mentioned as separate, those are not gonna be sacrificed at these being put as our priorities. Those are actually gonna be done as part of the base offering, and these are how we're gonna steer going.
Yes, absolutely.
Um, No, I don't think so.
Okay, never mind.
I think it was like an icon.
Sorry, Mike.
It looked like a hand.
Like,
Okay, any other comments or questions from our board members, state partners? I think this is a good set for us to move forward with, and I like the fact that we're gonna have this constant recurrence of reevaluating. We've gotta keep evolving. Any public comment? All right, hearing none, we have a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a second? Second.
Marla,
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. James?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Yes.
Just want to circle back and see if Veronica, did
Oh.
you join?
Oh, Veronica?
Yes,
Or-
I joined about 4 minutes late, but it's a yes for me.
All right,
Great,
thank you,
thank you for
Veronica.
joining.
Sorry, I didn't know that you hopped on. All right.
Okay. All right, so that takes us into our consent items. We have 4 of them to talk through. And we'll look at them as a slate.
I'll go over them. So the first one is just our minutes from January that are up for the approval. There were no new action items and there were 2 that were noted as closed. For the contract items, we have Accenture change notice 39. That includes 4 premise items. It also includes an incremental update to our transition scope as we've been doing this in steps and waves. So there's an update there. And then there are a number of county purchases, as well as there's an administrative update for an address change. The 4 premise items are alternate format, CalFresh minimum nutrition benefit pilot, CalFresh simplifications, and then there's a catch-up one on the child health and disability prevention. Then the combined premise costs equate to 2.8 million of our change allowance. That leaves 45.6 million for future work. The transition scope, that is an additional 3.1 million of the 10 million transition allowance. That leaves 5.8 for future work. And then the county purchases, there are 4 new county purchases. And then the remainder, there's a number of them that are simply revisions and reconciliation. The funding is all accounted for in either the IAPDU premise funding or county funding, and all is accounted for in the JPA project budget. The next item is our ClearBest change order 9 work order 2. That includes 3 premise items that are complementary QA services to the Accenture premise items. That work order utilizes 322,000 of the 8.8 million change allowance, leaving a balance of 4.4 million for future work. Funding is also accounted for in our JPA project budget and premise funding. And then lastly, Deloitte Portal, work order 18 has 2 premise items, alternate format, as well as a program level text message consent. The combined total is 312.9 thousand of the 33 million change allowance, leaving a balance of 19.2 million for future work. And those items are also funded through premise as well as the JPA project budget. Back to you, Michael.
So all the funding items all are covered in our budget? Okay, and then the clear best items, you said those are affiliated with the same change orders in this. Sometimes they're
Yep.
affiliated.
Sometimes it's a catch up. In this case, there are 3, the 3 are associated with the Accenture change in us, except for one, which was a very small item and not, a work order was not required.
And then says 16 county purchases. Is that like 16 different counties or is it just 16?
No, there's some have more than one. 4 of those 16 are new. One is Fresno, it's the Spanish translations for Gen AI. One is San Bernardino GAGR, some additional report support for San Mateo, and then Sacramento had some additional licenses. The remainder are all revisions to previously approved county purchases.
Like, that's what I said.
Excited. Any questions or comments from our state partners or our board members on this slate of 4 items? None. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to approve the slate of 4?
So moved.
In the room.
All right, Kelly,
Yes.
Ethan,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
I couldn't hear if that was my name. If it was.
James, James.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Yes.
Veronica,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Cynthia.
Yes.
So it's moved, so the item's moved. We're gonna go ahead and move into informational items. I believe we're gonna start with quarterly fiscal report, which brings Holly back up.
Hi, Dolly.
Still here. So before I jump into the quarterly report, I did want to give an update on our facilities. I'd previously shared that we are in the middle of a relocation to a new project site in Gold River. Address is noted on the slide there. Uber right away. Our target date is March 25th. So March 25th is our move-in date to be fully operational and set up. Our Roseville office will be closing March 31st. We are having our PSC meeting in Roseville. That will be our last meeting in Roseville. And those of you who will be there on site, you will notice it is a little empty in the office these days since we've started the move. So we've got a lot of the furniture is already in Gold River at this point. So I wanted to share that. So watch for future meeting notices where there's a new address. So keep an eye out for that.
Any state partners around here, who are our neighbors? Anybody there from the state?
I don't know of our neighbors. Do you, Dawn?
eHealth is out there, but there aren't any, no state facilities nearby.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. We'll jump into the financial update, our first slide. This is just our standard introduction slide with the definitions and abbreviations. So dashboards on the next page. This is our summary level of cost. This includes partial actuals through the month of March. That is based on actual invoices that we've already paid this month or are about to pay this month. It does not include the county claims yet, as of the February claims are being submitted this month. But we're tracking to a total combined across the portfolio of $399.5 million that crosses multiple cost allocation plans. Our CalSAWs, of course, and then our various premise and JPA administrative budget. This is an update. The allocation is an update to the last report. We had several planned shifts, or we're planning shifts across the state fiscal year associated with transition schedule updates and various premise items that have moved around. But also now that we're in the latter half of the year, we start more refinement and fine tuning of these costs. Either they've been completed or our projections are being refined. So we're just reporting out some minor savings at this point. And just as a reminder, we are constrained to our cost allocation plans. So like OCAT savings, we can't repurpose that for something else. So with that, we're tracking to 99.9%.
Is the EAC line, is that estimated annual cost? Is that what that is?
Estimated at completion. So that's the combination of both the actuals and the projection. Yeah. Yep. So we're at 99.9% utilization at this point. For our next page here, this is our consortium personnel details. This is where you'll see that OCAT savings, that's personnel savings. And then we also updated our FTE plan, our staff loading plan. We do continue to recruit for a few office positions. And I know an announcement we recently went out about one of those openings, which is our benefits Cal director position. Lynn Bridwell has retiring. So I don't know if you want to say anything, Julia.
But yeah, but we are actively recruiting, and that that one, it closes on April 5th.
Or 4th.
4th, okay, for that director position. But just we'll say this until she runs out the building, just a tremendous amount of appreciation to Lynn for, taking up this responsibility of her shaping this role, and also taking benefits Cal this far. So not in the room to be embarrassed, but it's okay.
It definitely has made an impact, a very positive one. Whoever's in behind her, hopefully we can keep that momentum going. We really need it in that space. So.
Right, jumping back to the report, the next slide, next two slides actually are a combination of the first one here is our M&E hours, application maintenance hours, that we use for SCRs, some change requests. So these are the budget and the projected expenditures for that. Expend 100% of those costs. The next.
So Holly, on that one, on that slide, I know I'm not supposed to, but I'm gonna ask questions anyway during it. The CalSAWs premise is at like 46% today. So we're okay trending that we'll still end up spending the whole thing by the end. Okay. I know it says that, but just double check.
The hours, as you can see here, these are the hours by service month. So some of the May hours were voiced and paid for in June of last year. So those are reflected on the prior year's report. For CalSAWs, we're tracking just over 237,000 hours. And we do continue to have hours specific to client correspondence associated with the high volume of change in that area. And then the Sarah Benefits Cal is our standard 30,000 hours per year. And again, we will extend all of these hours. The next page is our
obligations. These are the liquidated damages associated with various service levels. These are the levies that were applicable and applied to the current state fiscal year. And I know our next topic in the agenda is going to cover the quarterly performance review report. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Michael. Folks have any other questions?
Any questions or comments? I know I already asked a lot of mine. Fiscal report update from our board members or our state members. Any public comment?
Yeah, I had a question about the hours for benefits Cal, January through April of this year. You may have mentioned it, but maybe I didn't catch it. Why is it increasing?
Could you state your name?
Oh, yes, sorry. Amy Dearlam, River City Food Bank, Cal Fresh Outreach here.
Which slide?
The hours, yeah.
Why they increase on the latter half. So it just varies based on, we often have premise items that we're working on in the first part of the year, or it just depends on the release. Sometimes the release has more premise hours versus CalSolve hours, and then that kind of varies.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and move on to our next presentation, and that's our quarterly performance report.
You. I am Amanda Batt. I am the CalSolve Project Controller with Accenture, speaking on behalf of Lisa and Arnold today. So we're going to start with our cost of rework statistics. We are still keeping under the trend in the green under 10% over the last couple of releases. And we continue to update this as we move forward. Each release, as a new release comes out, we update the percentages so that it's reflected. So continuing to trend well under the green. If we can go to the next slide. This is our balance with our offshore. So we are limited to 40%, and we continue to run just under 40%. Over the last quarter, we were at 40%, but previous quarters we were at 36% and 37%. If we could go to the next slide. Our production defect backlog, we continue to trend lower. There's actually even a newer graph that I saw today that shows a continued reduction now, and continue to address our production defects as we've got new releases. Obviously, you see that there's a bit of a wave as we have code releases for a new release going in, and then we get to that backlog as we start to roll out releases again. So we're continuing to see a good trend. We could go to the next slide. Metrics. So for the last quarter, we did have a miss that you saw on that financial slide for security incident notification in December. And our January and our February ones are still under review right now, but we will update those in the next JPA so that you can see them. Overall, continuing to move forward well. I do want to note that there is one at the very bottom, you'll see that has NA there. For that one, the disaster recovery time response time is no longer applicable as of the transition for infrastructure. All really fast, it's the first time. Before I transition it over to Don for our infrastructure metrics, are there any questions for?
I have a question just on that last one.
Okay.
So is that a measurement we're going to be picking up with the new vendor?
Excellent introduction. Thank you, Michael. So as you all know, we have assumed responsibilities for infrastructure as of February 1st. So we do have a full month of ancillary metrics to report on. And we are now moving into our, I think, 8th week or 7th or 8th week. So working our way through, but we are happy to report that our preliminary numbers, we appear to have met our SLAs. But similar to what Mandy just indicated, these are also under review as we go through the full process. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Sarah with Highland. So Sarah, if you're on the phone, could you please cover the Highland metrics?
I sure will, thank you. So we're looking at quarterly metrics here for December through February. For monthly uptime, the target each month is 99.9%, and we had 100% uptime in January and February. Unfortunately, we had an issue on December 30th, preventing the ability to view, upload, and process documents due to a defect, which miscalculated the timestamp, causing mismatches during authentication. To resolve that issue, Highland implemented a development build to replace the faulty library, recalibrate timestamps, and reprocess impacted services. Highland Product Development is evaluating long-term fixes to prevent reoccurrence. Highland also held an RCA review meeting with consortium leadership in January, and the SLA penalty credit was paid by Highland according to our contract terms. So that's for uptime. The other two for page views and database transactions, each of those have a monthly target of 90%, and both categories averaged over 99% during that 3-month period. So that's all we have for Highland.
Sarah, owner, if you're on, if you would take benefits count, please.
I'm gonna Rachel. Oh,
Yeah, Rachel, if you would take benefits count.
So for benefits Cal, we have 3 overall performance metrics. Just looking at the history of the last 3 months, we had customer logins ranging from 193,000 to 201,000 unique logins on a daily basis. So just wanted to give that as a frame of reference relative to the performance of benefits Cal. We have 3 transaction or SLAs that we actually look at. The first 2 performance metrics are tied to the experience that the end user has in terms of how many seconds of response that's for a page to return. So for the first service level agreement, we've been maintaining north of 99% since the system actually went live. So as we've increased the number of people that have adopted, that number still stays consistent, less than 2 seconds for a page to render. If we go to the next service level agreement, this one is less than 10 seconds, and this is when there is more information that's being brought back and presented to someone. So the first one is restricted information, and the second one is information that's coming back that's less restricted. The third service level agreement, and we're continuing to maintain performance there as well, is the information that we exchange with external partners. So whether it's with CalSAWS or with the EBT vendor, we have a service level agreement to stay under 10 seconds, and we've been north of 98% on that one as well. So I will turn it back to Michael. Those are our 3 service level agreements for benefits Cal.
Question on the Highland issue that we had in December. You said it was a defect, Sarah, and was that a defect in a release that Highland put out? Was it a defect in the software that was released? I'm just wondering how it was introduced.
Right, it was a defect that was actually in a supporting library in the SDK. So it wasn't anything introduced during an update or anything like that.
So it was something happened to what was already stored in place?
Yes, it had been there. It just didn't, it wasn't evident until the 30th at 4 p.m., which is actually midnight UTC time, which is what the server was on. And it was related to a leap year issue with a defect in the library.
Okay, so from a preventative standpoint, that's where I was going, is where do we get from a preventative to how do we identify how we would catch something like this ahead of time?
Right, our product team is making sure that that doesn't happen again. There's a couple of long-term fixes that they are looking at with consuming the AWS SDK and introducing a new library with that signature algorithm, because it was part of the signature that did not allow for the authentication. And then we actually have some security and reliability corporate initiatives and ongoing practices that our cloud team is looking at evaluating as well to prevent occurrences like this from happening in the future. So it's more than, and it affected more customers than just CalSauce.
All right. I'll be interested to kind of see a little bit more detail on that outside the meeting. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Any questions or feedback or comments by our board members or state partners on this presentation on the performance metrics?
I have a question. Can we go back to slide 22, please?
That's 24. You can see in the corner.
You can't see that.
I can see far over these, but I can't see close.
I guess I want to continue on that incident. So it took 32 hours to resolve, which is a pretty long time. Is there any information that you can share about why it took so long to resolve it?
It was just something that needed to be worked through. We did have some alert notifications. We restarted some services that normally happen. We increased our logging levels to try and figure out what was going to happen. We reviewed the AWS outage. It just was not something super obvious. So there were a lot of levels that we had to go down. And then once we did identify the issue, we did engage our product development team to build that, to do that new build. And normally that is something that would take days. And it was something that we were able to expedite and get out a lot sooner. But it is something that did take some time just because it is complicated and a lot of different steps. We engaged AWS. It just wasn't a glaring obvious issue. And there were a lot of teams involved, and it just is something that unfortunately took a lot of time. And the 32 hours, there were from 4 p.m. on the 30th until 10 a.m. You weren't able to store or retrieve documents during that. At 10 a.m. on the 31st, there was a little bit of a lesser impact because we were able to get some things going between 10 and 2. And then between 2 on the 31st and midnight, we were reprocessing that. So that's where the 32 hours comes in. It wasn't necessarily a full outage, but when we calculated for the SLA credit, we did consider the whole 32 hours.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe the project can send us more details just for the directors out there so that we know just because of the impact we had on how this is going to be preventable.
And then I had another one on this page. Thanks for that explanation. On the other quarterly metrics we have trended data, and this one is not trended. Is there a reason for that? Helpful to see the trends, to see, from period to period, if we're having any trends. Could we do this trended?
Happy to do that. I think it was just a difference in how we changed things from the previous month. I just got a little section on one page before, and I didn't know I was getting a whole page today. So we can definitely change that in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other comments from our board members or state partners or questions? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the benefits Cal update.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lynn Bridwell. Well, this is just a quick ROI work group update. Much has been the same. We continue our analysis, benefits Cal and CalSAWS, looking at the functionality that was going to be introduced and looking at what changes are needed. We're nearly complete on the preliminary analysis, and we'll start engaging our work group members as soon as we can with our next meeting. The other item that is concurrently being worked on through our state partners is a revision to the ABCDM 229 form. All that to be said is that form is the one that a client or applicant signs to release specific information to a CBO. So just to give you a point of reference what that form is. So it is under consideration for some revisions, and so we're waiting for that to get finalized. We're continuing to meet. The next meeting was going to be Monday. I ended up with a late cancellation on it, but we will be meeting in April. I've scheduled out a couple of meetings in April already to make sure we continue moving forward. And with that, I believe it goes to owner to provide the other updates.
Thank you, Lynn. Good afternoon, everyone. So following the ROI updates, next we would like to briefly talk about our stakeholder engagements activities and how they translate into our delivery and how we support the programs going forward in the rest of the calendar year 2025. As you know, we have a wide spectrum of stakeholders, including customers, counties, CWDA, CBOs, advocacy groups, as well as our state partners. And in order to reflect the voice of our wide spectrum of stakeholders, we conduct a series of qualitative and quantitative activities as part of the UCD efforts, and including one-on-one sessions with the customers. We do sometimes group sessions, focus group sessions, surveys, conduct interviews in the lobbies when we do county visits, and of course, look into the help desk tickets to look at the trends that what comes up from the field. So all these funnel into the improvements that we have been sharing across different platforms, including our previous board meetings, we may recall, like the policy items or heavily used customer-facing features, doc upload, EBT, customer dashboard. And as Lynn mentioned, ROI is also one of the items that we have been working on through the work group together, and with the guidance of the state partners with the policy direction. Next slide, please. So in those lines, as we look forward 2025, there are a couple items that we will be working on in this calendar year to be in alignment with FNS and CMS requirements. That will be resonating as changes in our application flow for CalFresh and medical. Primarily, in a nutshell, what FNS is asking is primarily decreasing the complexity for our customers in the navigation flow, to remove some of the optional screens on the short app itself in order to make it even faster for them. With keeping the cognitive load in mind, though, we need a fair balance. And similarly, for allowing customers to submit CalFresh on their short applications with bare minimum information from the CMS perspective. In terms of from FNS perspective, from the CMS perspective, there are some requirements that we will be in alignment with to implement the rest of this calendar year as from program support side, such as the rights and responsibilities, making sure the medical related languages and additional consents are included. There are some requirements we will be implementing as it relates to the SSN and also single streamline application throughout this calendar year around, I think, September timeframe. That's on the roadmap. So these are the program support activities that we will be working on in this calendar year. We just wanted to give you a perspective on what is coming up. So I will pause here, Michael, and hand it over to you for any questions.
I'll open that up to our board member state partners. Any questions or comments on Benefits Cal update that we just received?
I have a question, Michael.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more about what the add exception for missing social security number is?
Sure. So those are primarily around for basically adding a kind of a clarification for the customers on when the social security number is not provided. We're adding a language that if the individual do not qualify for a social security number, or maybe only issued, SSN may be only issued for a valid non-work related reason. So kind of adding a clarification or a tip for the customer so they are not confused when we are collecting the SSN information, or SSN is missing from the application.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none. Any public comment? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to our policy and release update. I believe Michelle's going to do that.
I do want to ask one more question. Sorry,
Yes.
we'll slow there. Can we go back to the previous slide? This is just something I'm not aware of, and maybe other people know. But when did these mandates come from FNS and CMS?
Michael, if you don't mind, I can add a little bit here.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thanks. The FNS mandate on there has been out in their policy and their regulations for quite some time. They had done a review and they were working with CDSS to make sure that all the agencies are within compliance. And so when they picked up that Benefits Cal needed to do some adjustments and fulfill the requirements from the FNS perspective, we worked with CDSS to shorten it. So that one is not brand new. It has been out there. It's just been caught in a periodic review. As a side note, other states have also encountered the same thing where they're having to do adjustments to their online portals as well. For the CMS mandates, those were more recent. Those are you have to forgive me if we have the HCS online or our Medi-Cal experts. It's some of the final rules that are coming out after the unwinding, some of the items that are getting undone, and then these are some of the new mandates in order to move forward. And DHCS, we've worked with DHCS so that they too can remain in compliance with CMS.
Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate that context.
Yeah, I see our partner, DHCS has got her hand up. Teresa?
Yes, and I'm so sorry. I apologize if I shouldn't chime in, but just wanted to share that these also are connected, directly related to the update to DHCS's single streamlined application. For those of you that don't know, we actually have to put our application through the approval process with CMS. That includes not only the paper application, but our online versions of the application in Benefits Cal and in CalHERS. And so some of these changes were directly related to CMS's requirement for our application to be approved. And so counties and community partners all weighed in on that paper application. And this is just the changes that align with it so that we can continue to use Benefits Cal as our application.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. Appreciate that context. Any other comments or questions from board members? State partners? Public comment? Okay, hearing none. Now we'll move on to the policy and latest update, and I believe it will be Michelle. It didn't change between the last time.
It is. All right, so I'm going to give some highlights on upcoming policy changes. I'm not going to drain everything on the slide, but do want to highlight a few items here. So for March, we implemented the FPL COLA on March 1st. And then in our March release, which is the dates there incorrect, on March 24th is when users will see it in production. We have some changes going in to support the alternate format policy that is for DHCS. So we're adding some new field on a page and just kind of setting the foundation for the functionality for full implementation of alternate format in our May release. Another thing that we did in March, on the 6th of March, we did another round of mass replacements for 8 counties. So some power outages for CalFresh, we did mass replacements to issue some additional benefits. And then moving on to April, we have some updates that are coming, and I just highlight we have some additional updates to the CA 237 CalWorks report that will implement in priority release in April. And then in May, in our baseline release for May, as I mentioned, we have that final phase for the alternate format policy for DHCS. So once the end of May rolls around, we'll be sending out alternate formats for those beneficiaries that have identified the need for an alternate format. And then we also have in a priority release after May's baseline, we have our WITIP retirement and the implementation of our statewide cash aid time limit pages, what we're referring to as SCADL. We have that go live the weekend of Memorial Weekend. So it will be on what is that? May 27th, when users come back to work from that long weekend, we'll have our new pages available. And then in June, we have our Cal Here's release in the flight plan for that month. And then if we could go to the next slide. So next slide, just want to highlight that we are currently wrapping up system tests for our 2503 release. County validation for 2503 has wrapped up. However, the county validation period for the SCADL, our wood tip effort, that has been extended to 3/20. So users are still, county staff are still going through and processing scenarios for that SCADL implementation that was extended. We had a 3-week period, but then we had some bumps in the road, and so it was extended a little bit longer. Our 2505 county validation will begin on April 14th, and then we'll do another round of county validation for the SCADL. Again, that'll be a 3-week period for that. And then the last item is our team is finalizing materials for our green light meeting for our 2503 release, and that meeting is on March 19th with the RMs. So Michael, that's all I have. I'll pass it back to you.
All right, so only that. Any comments or questions from our board members or state partners on all those policy? Good. Any public comment? All right, Michelle, you did such a great job. No questions.
Thank you.
Much quicker than they say.
Okay, so that brings up transition update.
Yeah.
So in terms of the transition update, as we just talked about a couple minutes ago, we have already completed transition on the majority of the services and the infrastructure, but we do still have 3 items that are in flight that we are completing transition on. Imaging is the first one, as you see on the slide here. And that while we do have Highland, of course, running the SaaS part, there are application parts of this and integration with Highland. And we are working on transition of those custom components with that plan for a June 1st implement or cutover, if you will. We are past our first few steps in this. We are actually in the part where we are performing the duties now, and the incumbent vendor is overseeing what we're doing. We are also transitioning contact center. We plan the infrastructure for this also transitioned in February. So again, we are running the infrastructure, but the application and remaining services, including the call summarization with Fresno and the other upcoming counties who are interested, that is all transitioning to us as well. And we anticipate taking over these services completely by July 11th. And we are also working with the consortium on a roadmap for the future in this area. Access management, many of you would know that as ForgeRock. Ping Identity is the current name. That transition is due to begin April of 25, so April of this year. And this again is the other components beyond just the servers that it runs on. And that, as of the time of the slide, the transition date was to be determined, but we are looking at roughly the end of May for that transition to complete. And with that, I will turn it over to Rajesh for the M&E transition.
Thank you, Don. So on the M&E transition, we have completed week 7 of the transition activities. Overall activities are proceeding to plan. Collaboration with Gamewell and Accenture continues to be great. I would say most of the planning activities are done or nearing completion. Where we are now focused is, if you look on the slide, the release 25.09, which will be the last Accenture release in production. That is a release where Deloitte will do job shadowing, reverse job shadowing. We had multiple meetings with Accenture in the last few weeks. We now have a pen to paper to put together a detailed plan. We'll review with them and consortium and Gamewell in the next 2 weeks, and I expect that plan to be finalized, in the next 2 weeks or so. That is what I call is training wheels before we kind of start driving the car on 25.11. The activities for 25.11 will start around May timeframe. A lot of the planning activities are underway right now in terms of scope. One area where we had to do quite a bit back and forth is the CalHears release. CalHears release is a 12-month SDLC. So the first release was February of 2026, which means the work would have started March this year. And our transition activities have barely started. So, again, thanks to Shannon and Michelle and everyone from the consortium, we collaboratively work with DHCS and CalHears partners. And we compressed the timeline from 12 months to 10 months, and now those activities will also start in May, and also compress the scope since we are compressing the timeline. And the idea is to take some of those items and push it out to the next calendar release. They do 3 releases in a year, so it will be spread across their June and September release. So all in all, I think the planning activities are looking great. We are on track to take over OCAD, which is early April. We've been continuing to have multiple meetings with Don's team, and everything is proceeding per plan. The next, again, as I said, SCR is where bulk of the transition activities will be focused on, which is what is the 25.09 and the block options. Go to the next slide, please. So again, I've mentioned pretty much everything on this slide, and again, I think CalHears release was the one which was kind of a curveball, and we have to go back and forth and get a handle on it, but then now we do have a handle on it. Go to the next slide. So this is our dashboard for all the transition activities, and primarily 3 areas: knowledge transfer, job shadow, and reverse job shadow. A lot of the knowledge transfer sessions either are completed or in progress. We do now have access to SIS-6 environment, so the team does all their due diligence in that environment before coming to the functional KT. We are working with Don on the sandbox. We did get access to Bitbucket. So when it comes to the technical KT sessions, again, we'll play around in sandbox with the code, and then we'll come prepare for KT sessions. We are doing some sessions now, but all of the sessions will come as soon as we get access to the sandbox. On the reverse shadow, we did successful, actually we haven't done reverse shadow. The COLA is the one where we did job shadow for the March run, as Michelle highlighted, and those job shadow sessions went pretty well. So this is again another dashboard which kind of gives the sessions completed by work streams, and as you can see here, the SCR is where we have bulk of the sessions, and that is where we also have made a lot of progress. And I think the access to SIS-6 has been very, very helpful, and I think the next step here is going to be the access to sandbox. The only other thing I would here highlight is on the technology and access front, we continue to again work with Don on the AWS workspace and different roles to find and access. But all in all, I would say again, only 6 weeks, but off to a good start on transition activities. Pass back to Michael.
I do have a question about what you mentioned on the CalHears component, because it does seem that there's some risk associated there. So I was wondering what kind of risk mitigation we put in, because you compressed both time and scope.
So actually reduce the scope, sorry.
That's what I was gonna.
Well, I know, reduce scope, so is that a risk?
Well, it's less now, because there was 11 items in that one CalHears release, so it's fewer items.
Okay, okay, the release itself got smaller, not the preparation got smaller.
Well,
okay.
Yeah,
When you say scope, I was wondering if it's your scope, or are you talking about?
Yeah, it's spread out now, so the rest of it's gonna go later, because this is their first one, the cut over, that's too much too soon.
Right.
So they worked with DHCS to put fewer items in that particular release.
Okay, that helps,
Okay, so.
I was just hoping that.
That was the risk
preparation was not
mitigation.
reducing scope.
The items for
Fit
the
in the time.
Yeah.
11, I think they're now 6 maybe.
6, yeah.
And then Don, on the ping identity, that just gets me nervous, because we've had some challenges, obviously, through our life with ForgeRock, and it is the keys to the rest of the vehicle. So, I was just wondering what you guys are doing in risk mitigation on that, because that's a particularly sensitive area, in terms of knowledge transfer, testing, really stability preparation, because you've got a May target that's not far off, so.
Yeah, so although we have not formally started the transition prior, we actually been working on this transition without formally calling it that for quite some time as we worked through taking over the infrastructure part of it and then getting a full and complete understanding of the architecture, getting that all documented in diagrams. So we've been doing a lot of pre-work to be prepared for this. We are also in communications with Ting Identity to be sure that we have their backup availability and some consulting as well from them to assist us as needed. And we have brought in a couple of folks who have familiarity with this as well. So we believe we're prepping for it, but although it sounds very short, we've actually been working on the pre-work for this for several months now.
Any other comments, questions from our board members, state partners on this presentation? Yes.
Yay, apparently today I have something on everything.
Good.
Rajesh, I just wanted to say that I appreciate the transition dashboards. I think those are gonna be really helpful as we move forward. And it's an easy way to show us kind of both the volume of the scope, you know, so we can really be clear about how much great work is happening, and then also really easily see when things are on time or where we're gonna push this, like I said. So thank you for that. And Dawn, I was really happy to hear you talk about starting to think about scaling the AI call summaries. Really looking forward to that scaled, and I heard you say getting started on that in July, and wondering what the timeline is for that, for getting it out to all counties.
So I have not put together a full timeline yet, so I'm gonna dodge the question just a little bit. We are still working on catching the ball, but we have engaged a crew from our corporate AI group who is actually taking a look at that right now and building out the scheduling for me and we're working also with Sandeep and the consortium on the roadmap for where to take that, to make it more scalable and faster to get it going. So we're looking at all those aspects, but I brought in some experts from the corporation to get us going sooner.
Yeah, on that note, Marla, so it's the 26, 27 when it's actually in the council's budget, or to give us the budget to scale it out to other counties outside of the county purchase order. So right now it's.
So it's July forward.
Yeah. So right now it would still just be under a county purchase order if a particular county wanted to, but in the 26, 27 budget, it will be within the council's budget. Running in tandem to that is the strategy on the scalability using what Fresno did. There's some things that we should scale, some things we probably will do that different and better, right? So we want to kind of use this as a time to do that. We're talking about it. There's a whole presentation on it at the conference too in June, because I anticipate most counties are going to be asking the same question.
Just for public meetings, so just clarification on the timing. You said 26, 27, did you mean 25, 26?
No.
So it is a year and.
And let me also clarify, this is Holly, so it is going into a funding request.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, that's why.
26, 27 now.
Okay, because I figured we're working on the next budget right now, so if it actually, that does make sense to tie to it there, okay.
But it's going into a request, which will then go through all of the standard universal cycles, state budget cycles.
So, I am glad to hear though that it's an option to have the county purchase right now.
Yes.
So what's your capacity for county purchase? Like, what if all the counties said, okay,
I mean, we'd have to take that on a case by case basis, but again, like we said, we don't necessarily want to copy and paste what was done in Fresno, because there's a lot to be learned on that, and it's not necessarily scalable. So that pilot did what it was supposed to do. When we do it going out, there's a lot of things we would probably want to do ahead of that. So that's where in the conference in June, we'll talk about how the county can plan for even starting this process, and even from a process perspective, what some best practices are. So if they started flooding in, we would still have to take it up on a case by case.
So for the time between getting it actually budgeted, we're gonna use that time to actually provide steps for scaling. what might actually best practice that's gonna be incorporated in before it becomes a solution for all.
Yeah, we're preparing that almost like some type of, playbook, you know, for this, that will kick off in June.
And we also have obviously the 2 service desks that we provide to you all. And they are the perfect testing ground for us to test out all of the different changes for the scalability. So we will move this into our own service desks first as we try out the new technologies and make sure that that works before we roll it out to you.
That comes with experience. Living it first. I like that. Okay, any other feedback or comments or questions from our board member state partners? Any public comment? Okay, then we're moving right along. I believe we have CalSTA's procurement update next.
Yes. Good afternoon. The big takeaway from the Benefits Cal tasks are we will announce the intent to award on March 19th next week. And that'll be posted as well as redacted proposals and the vendor selection report to the calsauce.org website. Next is we're fixing to get the RFP for new QA services released on August 11th of this year, and that's moving along on schedule. Back to you, Michael.
And Tom, always with
the
the
best.
briefest, straight to the point updates. I like it. Thank you very much, Tom. Any questions or comments for Tom on this presentation from our board member state partners? Public comment. Okay, hearing none. Great job, Tom. Thank you very much. And let's move to our last item. Julia?
Yep. This is an not so shameless, bravely shameless plug for the 2025 CalSTA's conference that's coming up. We even enticed you with beautiful weather from San Diego in June. So that'll be happening June 26th through the 27th. Registration opened little less than 2 weeks ago, last week, and there's still room, but it is limited space. So, you know, get in there and get registered, make sure you get your hotel registered.
Yeah, I heard from a little birdie that we're more than a third
Yes.
booked in.
Oh, I was
so-
the bird, I think.
So if you guys want to get rooms, please get with your travel folks and get registered and get booked.
For sure. Yeah, and so we have some great topics. This is just informational here. We have some breakout sessions, some room for networking. We took some feedback from last year's conference. We have some the CalSTA's priorities and objectives conversation. Oh, that was the truck. Okay, sorry, that was a earthquake. All right. Gen AI call summarization, Marla, to your point, that's that presentation, kind of the playbook lesson learned from Fresno, the collaboration model, the progress on what's been happening there. And then we have some breakout sessions on data and analytics. We're trying to play with the theme. We're getting real obnoxious with the theme and the titles. So that's one session. Then we're talking about some great lessons learned from San Diego, who doesn't use our contact center, but the way they use gamification and incentives to really drive performance. We thought that would be really great to bring to the project, just as a discussion point. And then there's the return mail. Everyone's gonna be, we try to make that title really interesting because otherwise nobody cares about return mail except Dawn.
She's been a really good salesperson on return mail.
And it's still return mail.
It is. I tried to
rename it.
You know, I tried to change that and I was like, no, now everyone will be confused and angry when they walk in and they realize it's return mail. And so return mail, we have some changes happening on return mail, digitizing it and using that and kind of moving to the new, using innovation for that. And then we have a networking session with some, I think we're planning on some kind of murder mystery spy games kind of thing for our networking session. So looking forward to you all joining us in this. And like we said, we got a huge influx of registrations, but hopefully we'll get that, keep that going and look forward to seeing you all there.
Have a fly-in by Tom Cruise.
I tried, and then they told me I can't suspend down from the ceiling or else there's something.
You were willing to do it,
Workers,
huh?
I'm skydive, so I have no problems for jumping from and rappel, so. But they told me there's a whole workers' comp thing that I just couldn't get that approved. And no Tom Cruise, unfortunately. So, but we're looking forward to it and we're gonna have a good time.
So we're always trying to improve on previous conferences, and it looks like we took some of your feedback on meals, and we won't be capturing you for dinner, so you guys will have more free time and San Diego after hours, so that's
Very
always a
walkable.
plus.
That, yes, that's a very-
Although the last one was, more celebratory and oriented, but still, we want to make sure you guys have free time. Yourself or others you might bring down there to enjoy yourselves. All right, absolutely. Great. Any comments or questions on that item? All right. Any public comment? Okay, great. All right, our next meeting is April 11th at 1 p.m. again, piggybacking off the CWA meeting. So we'll be back here then again. They have directors, right? Okay, so see you then. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys being here all day long. All right.
Safe travel.
Meeting adjourned. Take care.
Oh.
It's Tuesday night.